It seems as if mankind has always had a fascination with flight. It's as if something is calling us heavenward. It's not enough that these people failed miserably. In their failure, they oftentimes destroyed the very machine they had worked so hard to build. And in their effort to try the thing out, they endangered themselves and sometimes others. Maybe if some of these folks that tried to fly would have taken a hint from, well, God. Take a look at a bird. A bird has wings. Now, wings are an airfoil. Now, here's how an airfoil works. It's called the 4 vectors. And NASA was nice enough to draw this picture for us. So let's look at each of the 4 vectors. Well, we see we have weight. You see, gravity creates weight. Gravity pulling us downward. There's also drag, and I added or wind resistance. Now, there's 2 components to drag. First of all, they can be illustrated without flying an airplane. You can do both of these experiments from your car. Drag. Why is it that if you take your car or truck down a dusty dirt road on a dry summer day or fall day, somehow the rear window gets caked with a bunch of dust? How'd that dust get there? The dust should have been behind. It shouldn't do that. Well, that's called drag. There's this turbulence and swirl that as the airstream moves over the object and it pulls it back toward the windshield. But more importantly, most of the drag comes from wind resistance. Now, if you're in your car or your truck driving down the highway, roll your window down, stick your arm outside. And if you're moving at highway speeds, you will feel the effect of wind resistance. Okay, the other vector is thrust. The engines move the plane forward, and that forces air across the wing of the plane to create the other vector, lift. It is the air, by the way, that moves over the top of the wing that produces lift. There's more distance over the top surface of the wing than there is the lower surface of the wing. The air has to move further. It moves faster. Faster air creates a lower pressure. Again, you can use an automobile to illustrate this point. I'm not suggesting or recommending that anybody smoke, but get in a car, get at highway speeds, crack your windshield about that much, and light up a cigarette. That smoke will be drawn to that little tiny crack in the windshield because the air pressure outside, where the air is moving faster, is lower. Well, mankind's quest for flight tells me that there's something in us calling us heavenward. You know, it's almost like we were built to soar, but there's something holding us back. Well, let's take a look at the 4 vectors through a spiritual lens, okay? Gravity. There's something pulling us down. You hear people saying, I'm always down. I don't believe in God. Everything's always down. Well, it's called gravity. Now, by the way, an airplane does not fly because it opposes, suspends, or negates gravity. There is absolutely nothing in an airplane that reduces gravity. But rather, an airplane is engineered to minimize the effect of gravity. You see, airplanes are built with aluminum. Now, why is that? Well, is it because aluminum is cheap? No, it's actually very expensive compared with other metals. Oh, well, it must be because aluminum is strong. No, absolutely not. Aluminum is among the weakest of metals. So, why aluminum? Well, because it's light. Planes are built to be light to minimize the effects of gravity. You know, I've often wondered why they don't build the plane out of the same thing they build the black box out of, because after a plane crash, the black box always seems to survive. All right. Well, folks, evil, like gravity, exists, and it always will. You know, is your strength or joy or both being siphoned off by evil? Well, maybe it's time to take a hint from the airplanes and lighten your load a little bit. You know, any crusade to eliminate evil is destined for failure. You can't eliminate evil any more than a plane can eliminate gravity. But you can minimize the effects of evil. In fact, you can overcome evil just as an airplane overcomes gravity by moving forward. You know, as we move forward as Christians, you know, we are likely to encounter spiritual effects of drag and wind resistance, but only because we're moving. Now, do you want to eliminate the drag and wind resistance? Well, just do nothing. That's right. Just stand still spiritually, and Satan will stop resisting you. Well, you know, you can even sit still in a church pew, as long as you're not moving forward. Well, if you're going to soar, there's got to be thrust. And guess who's going to provide that thrust? Is the preacher going to do it? Is your husband or wife or friend or some other person going to do it for you? No, you ultimately have to provide your own thrust. Now keep in mind, as you do that and move forward, there's going to be some drag and there's going to be some wind resistance. But remember this, the wind resistance is just evidence that air is now moving over your wings, spiritually speaking. You see, spiritual thrust moves you forward. Now, the laws of physics say that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know, the same immutable laws of physics that keep a parked plane on the ground are now working in favor of flight. But to generate lift for takeoff, you got to give it full throttle. You see, when a plane takes off, they do it under full power, because anything less would end in disaster. Now, I don't know about you, but imagine sitting on an airplane and the captain comes on, this is your captain speaking, and we're clear for takeoff. And I don't know, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to ease down the runway, and if the plane lifts up and comes off the runway, I'll give it some gas, and otherwise I'll just get to the end of the runway, turn the airplane around, and take you back to the terminal. No, that's not what happens. By golly, when that pilot wants that plane to take off, he puts the pedal to the metal, and man, you take off and you're being pushed back in the seat, and you're thinking, man, I hope this plane takes off, because if it doesn't, there ain't enough runway to stop, and there's going to be a crash at the end of the runway. Yep, there is something out there, or maybe it's inside of us, or maybe both, calling us heavenward. But if we're going to soar, we're going to have to understand and apply the principles spiritually of the 4 vectors.